Thank you very much. We're not going to let you get away. We want you here for questions, and I'm sure there will be, I hope, many questions, and already the hands going up. So thank you very much for an absolutely great talk. And now over to the... Yeah.
Is it on? Yeah. I'm Anthony Watkinson, Cyber Research, and I have been I must admit, I have been a librarian, I have been a publisher, but in recent years I'm an academic information scientist. Now, I know a lot about the structure of representative scientific bodies in Europe, for example. What puzzles me, and I'm asking you why, it's a yes or no, why didn't you go to the scientific community, the people who actually create knowledge, rather than the people who pay for it?
Well, the scientific community was, of course, the first ones which have been debating open access. The scientific community was the ones who came with open access.
No, it was the librarians, okay?
Well, I mean, the
I
librarians...
happen to know about this, so please don't, you keep making statements we haven't got the evidence for, okay?
Well, I mean, whether these were, for me, the librarians are part of the academic system. And so part of the academic system are the librarians. And if you look, for instance, at the University of California, where there is the professor of economics, is at the same time the chief librarian. He teaches economics. So, I mean, it is the scientific community which has been talking about this for a long time. The only thing is that the scientific community has not been able to sort this out for a number of reasons. And that's why the Plan S came, because the funders, as I said, hold the key to the solutions. The scientific community, and you've seen that also with the big deal negotiations, which have collapsed, the money crunch like France and Sweden, have not been able to sort it out. I often have compared these negotiations between universities and the big publishers as David against Goliath. And the only time that David has won is in the Bible. Notably, it is the big publishers which could just impose their conditions. And don't forget these negotiations in the past were with individual universities and the big publishers. Now they are grouped at national level, and still is very difficult. I received, remember, a call 2 years ago, I think, from the Bulgarian Federation of Universities, was about to start negotiating with the big publishers. They say, you know, how do we do it? What do we ask? Confidentiality clauses, of course. You know, this has not been a possibility for the science community to sort it out. But I want to be very clear, the whole drive to its open access did come from the academic community, including the librarians in that context, yeah.
Well, Philippe has grabbed the mic. Then we'll have Shall we first? Yeah? Off you go, yes.
Dr. Smits, just my congratulations for bringing a super important topic so efficiently, so capturing an imaginary on the agenda of the world. Well done. As you know, my name is Philippe de Hegge from Elsevier. I felt compelled to react, as you mentioned, as you were kind enough to mention us in the beginning. And I can just say that, the statement on Wikipedia was certainly not meant as a reaction on Plan S. We support the direction of open access. I can see that from your perspective, the consultation and the engagement with the reaction is a tough one, but also a pleasant one. I understand that you're still in some degree of consultation, and we see the several documents from the several groups coming along. How do you going to consolidate that consultation?
Well, that's going to be a difficult one. We met with the members of Coalition S last week in London, before I had a meeting with the learned societies. And at the moment, and we are still, you know, a month away from the deadline, we already received something like 700 reactions to our implementation guidelines. Of course, many of a similar nature, but we are committed to, of course, look into all of them, to take them seriously. And then in late spring, we'll come out with a revised version of our guidelines, our implementation guidelines, in order then to allow the members of Plan S to roll it out beyond after 2020. But it's a lot of work which will come our way, that's for sure. And I also consider, by the way, your reaction that if you want to go for free information, go to Wikipedia as more a joke than something serious. Yeah.
Thank you for saying.
Okay, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sam Burrell. I work for a consultancy called Renew. Most of our clients are learning societies, and we work with them on their publishing programs. I have a philosophical question for you about the position on mirror journals, which I'm really struggling to understand. I get the hybrid journals are problematic, but the one piece that I struggle to get my mind round is what the philosophical objection to mirror journals is. So if you could elucidate that, that would be great. Thank you.
Could you start by explaining what a mirror journal is?
Well, I think the folks from Elsevier can explain very well what the mirror journal is, and then I'll define how I'll define it.
Let me give a thank you for allowing that. A mirror journal is actually, we don't claim that it is invented by Elsevier. I think there was an earlier version of it, really a couple of years ago. Mirror journal is a way not to address Plan S. We were pre-launching it before, but a way to give more transparency and a good place of open access needs, and split out with the same peer review, with the same rigor and quality and integrity indicators of the main journal. Really split out the previously hybrid content and put it in a mirror journal. For maximum transparency and you know, you can argue about sort of what are the next steps of that, right? And I would think that in many areas you would get a degree of acceleration of open access. That was the intention, and again, it was not a reaction on the Plan S, but the reaction in the market was very positive. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
The concept, well, perhaps now I say what I think about mirror journals, because that was your question. I think the mirror journal is being taken for a ride. Because when the Finch report came, there was first a hybrid, and then Plan S came, and it was quite not a coincidence that after Plan S, the idea of the mirror journals was presented.
No.
And it's very much, you know, putting a ribbon around the articles in a hybrid journal, and taking them outside, and then you call that a mirror journal fully compliant with open access. And you feel in your guts that you're being taken for a ride.
Well, no.
So for that reason, mirror journals are for us not compatible Plan S, unless, again, they are part of a transformative agreement, of a transformative duration, limited in duration, period of 4 years, as we say in our implementation guidelines. So not as a new business model, because, you know, everyone who read about it, you feel already deep inside, there's something fishy about it.
So to clarify, if you are a society publisher and you have a journal which is currently a subscription journal, if you launch a sister journal, maybe use a different word, might make you happier. If we launch a sister journal that has the same scope, editorial processes, editorial board even, and it's called Journal A Open, it has all the open access articles in it. The subscription journal remains the same with just behind the paywall. The difference being that the new journal can borrow the impact factor, the respectability of the first one. It is a transition step. Putting a 4-year boundary around it might be risky to the society, to be honest, but it is a transition arrangement. Ultimately, not all researchers are going to be Plan S funded. How does that not? I mean, I get that you might be going, but it's just hybrid by another name. It's also actually a sustainable way to move towards Plan S, surely. I'll stop now.
No, you use the word transition, and then we can talk business. If you say transition, it's a mechanism of transition, limited in time, limited in duration, we can do business. And that's exactly what we are proposing. Mirror journals or sister journals or brother journals or grandmother journals, no problem whatsoever, as long as it's part of a transformative agreement, as we clearly see what is the sunset clause. Because at the end of the day, we want 100% full and immediate open access.
Good Good morning, I'm Fred Dilla from American Institute of Physics. Retired, but I'm still thinking about such things. Your activity began as a coalition. It continues as a coalition. With your vast experience in government, you must know the value of coalitions are improved when all stakeholders are at the table. Your coalition started with a very important partner, the funders, but you have consulted publishers, but they haven't been at the table for your negotiations. You mentioned the Finch report. That commission had all the stakeholders at the table. It mirrored an identical operation in the US, the Scholarly Publishing Roundtable, that had all the stakeholders at the table, and that has resulted in the US agency's present implementation of open access. So my question to you, rather than just talk to us at meetings like this, why weren't we at the table? Why are we not at the table now?
Well, it's interesting maybe because just gentlemen said you have not consulted the academic community, now have not consulted the publishers. As a matter of fact, the stakeholder group I talked most to were the publishers. As a matter of fact, my plans were coming out of my discussions with notably the big publishers. One of the bosses of one of the big publishing companies here represented even told me when I started with this, he said, Robert Jan, as long as scientists want to publish in my journals and as long as they are allowed to publish in my journals, I will offer my subscription journals. Well, that was a very clear thing for me what to do, not to allow scientists anymore to publish in these subscription journals. And the same is with regard to the global dimension of coalition as well. Another big publisher told me, you can only succeed with that if there's a global coalition. If it just stays within Europe, Europe, no, we go to Asia, there's other markets. Well, that's why we are now going global. And the funny thing is that when I meet with STM, the first thing they tell me, oh, we have to keep our discussion light because of competition policy. We are afraid that we are being seen then. So I have been talking to all the big publishers, both open access publishers or more traditional publishers. I've been meeting with STM, but from that point of view, STM is not at all a useful organization because we want to talk something concrete. The answer is no. I made a proposal to STM before the Christmas break. I said, since transformative agreements are now going to be the model, most likely, for flipping the system everywhere, why don't we agree on a number of principles on how transformative agreements could work? A number of principles which then could be applied by the University of California, could be applied wherever. The reaction, well, we can't do this, we need to think more. Well, I mean, you had your chance to sit around the table as a structured body, but nothing came out of it. And that's why the debate, the discussions are mostly of a bilateral basis. And then these discussions are really first class. When I then meet with the big publishers, even if we disagree, we look each other in the eye and we really, see where we can find each other. And that's something else which I forgot to mention. And there I'm slightly different than a lot of other people in the open access movements. For me, the transition is an all-inclusive process. I don't exclude anyone. I compare it to the train journey, where I want to reach the destination with everyone, big publishers, small publishers, open access publishers, science community. It's an all-inclusive journal. I don't write anyone off, and certainly not the big publishers who have so much contributed to science and are still so much contributing to science today. And that's why, for me, it's an all-inclusive process. But again, by the representative organizations of the publishers, I've been quite disappointed on how much they could be a partner in this dialogue.
We've had some here.
Good morning, Peter Berkery from the Association of University Presses. The conversation about Plan S, and certainly even your remarks today, have focused on both science and on journals. And while that's understandable, it's already begun to create some confusion among the humanities scholars that my members publish. I wonder if you could speak, I'll use the word definitively, about both long-form publishing, which is to say monographs, and about humanities and the social sciences. Thank you.
Well, we had quite a discussion in Coalition S about the role of social science and humanities. And at the end of the day, we decided, and that's what I'm very much pushing for, not to give a derogation for a certain discipline, but to make a distinction for the monographs and books. So the monographs and books will not be covered by Plan S. We are going to look into that and deal with that. There was also a reason that many people said, monographs and books, as you know, are mostly used by the humanities. Many people said as well, it will take much more time for that community to move towards open access, and that's why, for the time being, monographs and books are not mentioned or covered by Plan S. And that does not mean we're going to look into it further. We will look into it further, but for the moment, we have not focused our attention on that.
To add to that, maybe you could say something about journal publishing, the humanities and social sciences. The vast majority of articles that are being published in the humanities and social sciences are not publicly funded research. And that's, for me, the biggest flaw, really, about Plan S. While I wish we could accelerate open access in the humanities a lot, because I think the research we publish is tremendously important. I feel this is not a key to accelerating it. Not in the humanities and social sciences. If 95% of the research is not publicly funded, we simply cannot flip journals. I'm from Brill, a 300-year-old publisher.
No, Yasmin, I mean, we've been discussing that, and that's why I say one of the issues which is for me high on the agenda to look into, and that is notably becoming clear once again when I met with the smaller learned societies last week in London, is that there are journals which for 80%, for instance, are publishing articles by people who are not on the ground. How are we going to deal with that? And that's also the thing you covered. And that's something on which I don't have the answer yet, but I think we need to look into that. And we also need to look into possible financial mechanisms in order to support that. And that's the same with regard to the learned societies in general. I'm a big admirer of learned societies because they do an amazing amount of outreach and they do a fantastic role to embedding science in society. But I don't like that learned societies run with the public purse, an extremely expensive journal, make an enormous amount of profit, and then use that for whatever good reasons it is. I think it's time also for them to move to new business models. But your specific issue regarding the humanities, we are looking into that at the moment, because I don't want that these disciplines, but also these quite impressive learned societies or publishing companies get into trouble. But I also ask you to think proactively about solutions. And that's another thing which I call upon the publishers here. Perhaps you should read again the book, it's 20 years old, Who Moved My Cheese? It's written by Spencer Johnson, and I think most of you who followed management course have read this book. But it's a typical nice book which describes when, at the moment, a cheese is being taken away and how people react to that. So I recommend everyone again to dig that out of the library and read again that book, Who Moved My Cheese, and look for new business models, look for new solutions. We are not going to change the principles, but we want you to look for new ways of working together and moving forward together.
Leonie Schneider, science journalist. So the official version that you designed Plan S together with Mark Schiltz and Coalition S, which consists of funders. And then Plan S was announced in PLOS and in Frontiers. And then I obtained censored emails from the European Commission's emails between you and Camilla Markram and other Frontiers representatives, which were clearly discussing the opening access transformation. And it was before Plan S was announced and also after. So my question is, could you maybe explain the nature of that interaction with Frontiers and which other publishers you also involved in that consultation?
Yeah. Well, Leonie, perhaps for the other people who are here, he runs a blog which is constantly more or less accusing me for having special relations with Frontiers from day one, in quite an aggressive way. And I'm always happy that you choose Frontiers and not Elsevier, because I've been meeting more often with Elsevier than with Frontiers. And so from that point of view, I mean, I found it very disappointing the way you communicate in such an aggressive way and accusing me, first of all, of having special relationship with the organizations, with the president of Frontiers, who have only, I've never visited Frontiers in my life. I've had 3 times a meeting with them. Then you involve the husband, who's a scientist as well, that has special relationships. I think this is not the way I would like to have the debate, Leonie, and I think it's really pity. As everyone knows here, my door has always been open for everyone for a fair discussion. But these type of below-the-belt accusations, not based on facts and figures, are really, I think, a pity. And I hope that can be closed and put to an end very, very quickly, these things. So you have your 5 minutes now.
And then we should move to the afternoon, I think, because Robert Jan is also joining the afternoon session, and he will join the panel discussion at the end of the afternoon. And then he will create enough appetite for the conference dinner, I think.
I'm still invited for dinner, by the way?
Yeah, of course.
Just Efke, just Efke.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, maybe I go first. My name is Barbara from SDM. Robert Jan, we know. I just want to make, in a direct response to you about the explanation you gave about, let's say, how SDM and you were meeting and how we proceed from this, I would like to make one clarification. It is absolutely right that there was a meeting between SDM and the Plan S, Coalition S people taking place December 6, where we gathered about 50 members of our organizations. And it's right that you made a proposal how we can, let's say, continue this dialogue. But I think it's more than important here to have a clarification in the way that we from SDM, we have to follow the rules which are, let's say, being given by the TFU 101 and 102 article, which means that trade bodies have to follow very carefully when it comes to antitrust and anti-competitive issues. So we are right now in a way to seek legal advice for this. We hope to have this advice being supplied to us by January 18 and 19th, and then we can decide how and if we can move forward. But I think it would be not correct to say in a way that we are not interested or we have a problem. I think as you are citing CEOs, I would like to cite a CEO from this meeting who clearly said, we are so close in such a discussions where maybe those CEOs representing publishers have to be extremely careful not to go to prison, because we are acting here in a market and we have to respect on what the market, let's say, terms and conditions we are allowed to speak with another group of people. And I think I would just make clear here that we are in process to get this advice, and once we have this, we will definitely come back to you.
Okay. No, thank you very much that you're willing to come back to me. I have had in my previous job lots of joint cooperation projects, public-private partnerships with the pharma industry, with the food and beverage industry, with the aeronautics industry. They were always, around the table, coming forward and being willing to really move hand in hand to something new. With the publishers, I must say as federation, I found them extremely conservative and waiting and using all kinds of legal arguments not to do anything. And I think it's a pity. And that's why I referred to the book Who Moved My Cheese, because it is really time to look into new business models. It's a little bit like here in Germany, and perhaps I should not say because it's impolite to the German car industry. For many years, diesel cars were the thing. And everyone says, if you have a diesel car, that's the big thing, the government were giving incentives. But over the last years, the diesel cars, fell out of, reach, and increasingly the consumers said, we're not going to buy these diesel cars anymore. And then, of course, the government said, diesel cars, we don't want them anymore. So what did the car industry say in Germany? Well, Europe is just a small market. We go to Asia. They still want our diesel cars. And then suddenly discovered that also Asia doesn't want to have the diesel cars anymore. And then they realized that they need to look for a new business model. A new business model, the electric vehicle. If they had invested much more upfront into this electric vehicle, the transition and the transformation would have been so much easier also for the German car industry. And I think there's a very strong resemblance with what the publishing industry is at the moment going through. You need to move to new business models. You need to sign these transformative agreements. You need to move on. And I really hope that this is going to happen in full partnership and that we don't have one party stepping on the brake and doing everything to avoid a transformation taking place. And that's why, again, I've reached out my hand to STM at several occasions, come back, but be fast, be quick, because the developments are going extremely fast at the moment.
Okay. Last question then.
Thank you, Bob. My name is Evke Smits, also STM. Thank you very much for your clear categories of criticism, the three you mentioned. I recognize them. But I also, personally I was actually struck by a fourth category of criticism, and that was the young researchers. And that was actually a bit new to me, but I read a lot about it in the media, and if I can summarize their criticism, it is, they feel very much curtailed by this plan. They really want to choose they want to have their own free choice of the journal where to publish. It's at the start of their career. It makes or breaks their career very often where their PhD research appears. And they also said they find Plan S very much a top-down plan that might be good for established researchers, but not researchers at the start of their career. And they also fear that in the funding of Plan S, they'll be at the end of the food chain and they might not get the funding to get published. What kind of solutions do you have in mind for them? Because they are the future.
Well, with regard to this young generation, I mean, the Young Academy, I've talked a lot of them. I think there's some representatives here as well. They are for sharing. They are for open access. However, they say the academic system has to change as well. Because at the moment, our careers are determined by the number of publications in the so-called prestigious journals. So in other words, the high impact factor is still, the journal impact factor is still used for rewards, for recruitment, for our careers. And they say we would love to go to open access, but the system needs to change. And that's why it's so important that DORA becomes reality and also the Leiden Manifesto really becomes reality, and that we use new metrics for rewarding and recruiting people and to make sure that the younger generation is not the victim of this. And this younger generation is, of course, a generation which is used to sharing and Instagram, social media. So this is a completely different group. If you listen to a person who represents young scientists like Gareth O'Neill from Eurodoc, he says it's a generational debate. We want to share. We are for open access, but we don't want to become the victim if the system regarding rewards and recruitment is still quite old-fashioned. And there's also increasingly a group of young academics who say, well, if we go to open access, there's only one model we would like to see, is the diamond model. And we don't want then again that the big publishers call the shots. So that's also, if you look at one of the recent papers from the Global Young Academy, a very clear statement. If we then go to open access, if we then go to new metrics and reward systems, let's base it completely on a diamond-based approach and not allow again a couple of big multinationals to call the shots. That is what they stand up for, but if they're present here, they can better explain than myself. But I think this afternoon there may be ample debate for that, yeah.
Actually, Arno's demanding the right to ask the last question.
The basis makes me thinking of the Roman Catholics and the Protestants. The Roman Catholics are sitting on the good grounds, and the Protestants are sitting on the newfound land, etc. But just to use a different phrasing, what is the market share of Plan S? How much do you cover in the world? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 30%? And why are the Germans not in there?
Okay. Good question.
I knew it was a good question.
No, it was quite interesting. When we started, the reaction was, notably the big publishers, Europe, is only 3%, of the world's scientific output. And, we have gone into a new market called China and the Far East. So, we write off Europe. That's why I made the comparison with the car industry, the diesel engines. We write off Europe, we go to Asia. And then suddenly, Asia or China, which is the biggest growth market at the moment, said, we don't want to have these journals anymore behind paywalls. We want to have open access. So now with China on board and hopefully a couple of other biggies who will follow, I think the tipping point may be there. How many are we at the moment? I think we are around 20% of science output in the world at the moment. And I hope that by the time I leave, because on the 1st of March I'll take up a new assignment, we are reaching the 30%. And then it's for the next open access Envoy to push it further. Now, why are the Germans not on board? That's an interesting one, and there will certainly be representatives of the German science system who can explain it better than I. The Germans are the leaders in open access. If you see what the Germans are doing in order to support even existing journals to flip and to set up new open access platforms and initiatives, it's Germany. The only difference between Plan S and the DFG approach is that we say you can only publish in open access or on open access journals, open access platforms, while the Germans say you better do it or else we're going to twist your arm, but it's not an obligation. I think that is describing perhaps a difference. But Germany, as a country, is so much committed to open access. And if you look what Max Planck is doing, for instance, amazing. And look also at the support given to some of the journals which are flipping. We also heard about the Elsevier magazine, which flipped yesterday. I mean, there's a bit of support also given by German authorities, funding agencies, to allow the flipping of journals to take place. But again, the Germans in this room can explain it much better than I. Talk to the Germans. Always good to talk to the Germans, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That was a tremendous session. Thanks very much. Thank you.